This is StormReel, a podcast about the intersection of people and weather, hosted by storm chasers Jeremy Heyman and me, Gabe Cox.
Welcome to StormReel, the podcast about the intersection of people and weather. I am your host, Jeremy Heyman, joined by my fellow host, Gabe Cox. Hey, Gabe, how you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome, man. Very excited about this episode. Been amped about it for a long time.
Absolutely. This is one of those that's like a marker for us of like, whoa, I can't believe we get to talk to this person. We're super excited to chat with our guest. But first, something semi-related to our guest. As listeners know, Gabe and I are fairly obsessed with the retro vibes of the Weather Channel's classic Local on the 8s forecasting and presentation and music and everything. And Gabe, you discovered this really cool version of it that gives you your local weather in your web browser. What is it?
Yeah, it's the WeatherStar 4000. I stumbled across that a few months ago, actually. I've been excited about sharing it on the podcast, and it seemed like a fitting episode to do so. It was created by an engineer named Matt Walsh, who, quote, enjoys the weather and lots of data. So he created this Weather Channel, like 90s Weather Channel vibe aesthetic that displays actual up-to-date forecasts. So it utilizes NOAA's weather API. And so you just plug in your address and it displays your forecast as you would have seen on the weather Local on the 8th on the Weather Channel in the 90s. He's even built in some royalty-free smooth jazz to go along with it. So you could have the full vibe. But it's fantastic. I love it. That's my screensaver now when I'm not working or recording podcasts. I'll just have that on display on my computer.
It is great. It is so great. And there's different options you can select on and off in terms of what you want it to show, like current conditions, hourly forecast, even SPC outlook, which is really cool. My favorite feature and effect, though, is that you can turn on and off scan lines, which simulates a CRT monitor. So like old school CRT monitors, it can look like you are literally back in the 90s looking at your old monitor.
It's so fun.
It is so cool. He did such a,
and they'll even
job.
like you get the watches and warnings like you used to get, and I love it. And there's radar, there's local radar, and he's pixelated it. So it's like really old NextRad Doppler radar look. It's
so cool.
He went all in.
It's so cool. And to look it up, it's weatherstar.netbymatt.com. And we'll put that link in the show notes so you can you can pull it up and bookmark it and enjoy.
Yeah. It's good stuff. And I want to say, sadly, this only works inside the U.S. So for our international fans, at this time, there is not support for you guys, but hopefully that's coming soon. Just bookmark it and keep checking back and see if they update that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's turned into my forecast interface of choice for sure. It makes me very happy. and I know I can trust it. It's using NOAA data and that's awesome too. So very, very, very cool.
Love
Great find. Yeah. Great find, Gabe. All right. Let's bring in our guest. Our guest this week, we think needs no introduction, but alas, it is our solemn duty. Mike Bettis is a veteran television meteorologist, having spent 22 years covering every conceivable kind of weather event for the Weather Channel. In 2009, Mike and his broadcast team, a part of NOAA's National Severe Storm Laboratory's Vortex 2 project, spearheaded the first live tornado ever broadcast on the Weather Channel. He's also an outspoken mental health advocate whose candid story has deeply touched Gabe's and my life. You can now watch Mike every weeknight on the Weather Channel's Weather Unfiltered. Welcome to the show, Mike Bettis.
Hey guys, good to see you. Good to talk to you.
Yeah,
good to have you on the show. Yeah. epic, momentous occasion. We're glad to have you on here.
Oh, you guys, I'm going to get a big ego here. I'm not going to fit through the door after this.
We've been looking forward to this for a long time, man. We've been following you for a lot of years and are such a huge fan of your work.
Well, I appreciate that. Maybe longevity, maybe gives you that. I can't believe I've been in the business. This is my 30th year in TV meteorology. Wow. I can't believe it's been that long. It feels like yesterday I graduated from college, and here I am, long tooth in the business. So
it's incredible. What an incredible career so far. Well, tell us where you're at today. Like, you're putting on a show every weeknight, and you're getting, it airs, I believe, 6 p.m. Eastern. Where are you at in your production during the day right now?
We have a meeting in the afternoon once everyone gets in to the office, and we start prepping kind of as soon as everyone comes into the office. So it's a solid 3.5, 4 hours of prep before the show starts at 6 o'clock. And then we do a 4-hour show,
wow,
every night with Alex Wilson and Dr. Rick Knabb. And it's been a real thrill, ever since the incarnation of the show, which has kind of taken on a couple different personalities. When we first launched the show, 2015, it was called Weather Underground. We did the show from a bar. I don't know if anyone remembers
yes,
that.
I do remember
we had this weather cave, right? We had a pinball machine, and we had a bar with a working keg and everything.
I forgot about that.
It was actually really awesome. That's right? Great, at the time. We had full disclosure, we had root beer in our keg, not real beer. Maybe beer would have made the show more fun. I don't know. But then we kind of transformed, and when we kind of expanded our main studio a little bit, and we moved over to there, and then we eventually decided we wanted to change the name of the show last year and became Weather Unfiltered, because generally speaking, I feel kind of in the evenings you're a little bit more free to say whatever it is you want, and we generally do. Within reason, so that's where we are. So yeah.
It's great. Your studio is incredible too. Just what you're able to show visually in a just volumetric 3-dimensional way is really wild.
It's pretty awesome, it kind of feels a little Hollywood-esque, when you see the size of the green screen that we have in our studio, the floor, the walls, the ceiling. I feel like I'm going to do, a Marvel movie or something, but it's kind of given us a different way to present the weather, and we can do a lot of different things 3-dimensionally, and where you can walk in front and behind of graphics and really be immersed in it, which is a new trend in the last couple of years. It's kind of been fun to be at the leading edge of that.
Yeah, it's been super fun to watch that too. I remember when those interactive sets started coming out, and it was going viral, and still when you guys release them, they go viral. Just amazing way to visualize, and I think it helps a lot of people visualize storm surge and the threat there and all these different elements of storms, and it's been such a cool thing to watch develop. You stated at the top that you've been in this realm for 30 years. You've been at the Weather Channel, I think, for 22 years. Is that right?
Yeah, it's been a long time. My first job was doing weekend weather in Dayton, Ohio. I graduated from Ohio State, and I couldn't really find a job. After I graduated, I had interned at a local TV station. I was working after graduation at a Coca-Cola plant in their chem lab, quality testing Coke products. It was kind of a weird thing I was doing, and I would drive. I was in Columbus, and I would drive to I drive an hour and a half to Dayton and do weekend evenings there. And then I'd drive back, and I'd work Monday through Friday at a Coke plant. I was working 7 days a week out of college. But it took me a while. It took me a couple of months to get a job, and I finally landed one doing weekend weather in Dayton, Ohio, and then worked there for about a year, moved back to Columbus and worked in Columbus television for 4 years, moved on to Asheville, North Carolina. I worked there for 3 years and eventually found myself at the Weather Channel in 2003 and have been there ever since.
That's amazing. So I want to know, when did the weather bug bite, and when you knew that you were you wanted to be all in on the weather industry, was the Weather Channel the goal?
Oh God, no! The Weather Channel was never the goal. Actually, I mean, I remember watching the Weather Channel when I was a teenager. And be like, oh, there's a channel like just for weather. This is pretty wild. Because I mean, traditionally, I mean, my age, all we did was we watched local TV, right? And for me, it was probably a guy named Dick Goddard who passed away a couple of years ago, but he had been a long time meteorologist in Cleveland for years, decades, literally. Like my parents watched him, and then I did, and everyone like just knew Dick Goddard, right? So he was a bit of an inspiration, but also like Al Roker at a point in time also did the weather in Cleveland, and I got to watch him, as a kid. He wasn't there as long as Dick; he was there for a few years, but Al was just this big, bubbly personality. He was really quirky and funny, and so. Those two guys really were people that I watched, but I don't know if there was any specific event that necessarily said, spoke to me like a lot of meteorologists have that, like, oh, this was the moment, like I knew. I just kind of enjoyed all four seasons growing up in Ohio. And I think that, thunderstorms, winter storms, it all kind of fascinated me. I always really loved summer because we could spend lots of time outside. And summers were generally pretty comfortable in Ohio. But I remember kind of being a senior in high school, and all of my buddies wanted to go to college and be engineers. And I was just like, I just don't know if engineering is for me. Like, I really like math. I like science, but I'm just not. I don't want to be an engineer. And so I was like, you know what? I actually really like weather. Can I get a degree in meteorology? I think that would be pretty cool. And there really was only one school in Ohio that offered meteorology. And so I ended up going to Ohio State. I couldn't afford out-of-state tuition or anything like that. So my dad and I went and visited Ohio State, and lo and behold, I said, that's for me. I'm doing it. And, the rest is history.
That's awesome. Yeah. And what a history it's been. Do you have any particular storms or moments on the Weather Channel that really stand out to you in the last 22 years?
Oh man, that's a loaded question.
It is. It's a leading question for sure.
Oh my gosh. Like, where to begin? What's crazy is there has been so much weather in the last 2 decades. It's hard to know what sticks out, right? Probably the first really legit. Well, you know what? I should go back. So, the summer of 2004. So I had been there a little less than a year. And they had decided they're going to send me out to cover hurricanes. I'd done hurricanes before, working even in Columbus and Asheville. I'd been sent to the coast to cover hurricanes before, so I had some experience. The first hurricane they sent me out to cover is Hurricane Francis, 2004. Now, they sent me kind of all on my own. It was just me and a satellite truck operator and a photographer, and that was it. And they did not send us to the east coast of Florida where Francis was going to go. They sent us to the Panhandle because it was going to come through the Gulf of Mexico, go to the Panhandle, probably be weaker. It was just kind of a way for me to get my feet wet, right? So we were there for 3 days in advance. And this is my very first year. I really wanted to make a good impression for the Weather Channel. This is cool. I get to cover hurricane for the Weather Channel. And we waited and we got, hot and steamy in the Panhandle of Florida. I'm watching Jim Cantori and Jeff Morrow and Stephanie Abrams, and they're getting clobbered in Hurricane Francis. And I was like, oh man, this thing's going to be awesome when it gets here. And it just kind of fizzled on its way toward the Panhandle of Florida. And here's what's the funny part, and this is the funny part of the whole thing, my first hurricane experience, is that the photographer that we were with, we had been out there so long just doing meaningless live shots in anticipation of what was coming to the Panhandle that he ended up getting heat exhaustion.
Oh my gosh.
And the whole storm was dying, but there was one squall line that was coming towards us. Well, he was sick. And so when the squall line came, we missed the whole thing because he was sick and we had no cameraman to operate the camera. So we literally missed the whole thing. We're there for 3 days and got absolutely nothing. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe what just happened. I'm going to get fired. It ended up being fine. Things happen, right? And the next hurricane they sent me out to cover was Hurricane Ivan, back to the Panhandle again. I was like, oh no, I'm jinxed. But this ended up being, a Category 3 eye wall right into Pensacola, and that just kind of was the storm that started for me the whole hurricane coverage thing. So Ivan really stands out to me. Tremendous storm surge, like a huge storm surge maker. I think Ivan may still be in the top 10 for costliest hurricanes, or real close to it. There's been so many since. But 2004 and 2005 were just big hurricane seasons. And in my opinion, that was kind of like the pinnacle of the Weather Channel at that moment, right? Because no one else was really covering hurricanes like we were. And then once Katrina came, that kind of changed the trajectory of television in general. So all the news stations were really then on board. Yep. And Katrina was definitely, an eye-opening, storm. And I had been down in coastal Mississippi. Really, it's the aftermath more than anything that was what, got everyone's attention, right? I was in Long Beach, Mississippi, where everything was destroyed, within a quarter mile of the water. And it was just amazing to see that and that coverage. So as far as hurricanes go, I would say, Katrina is right up there, but like there's been some crazy storms. Hurricane Michael, Hurricane Florence, Hurricane Wilma, Hurricane there have been so many, like I can't keep track.
There's been a lot, especially in the last 5 years. It's been insane.
Yeah, for real. So Harvey really was one that I don't think I'll ever forget. The amount of flooding that occurred with that one, the amount of tragedy that occurred with Harvey really was one that I don't think I'll really ever forget, covering that in Texas. And I would probably say Hurricane Irma also probably ranks right up there. We were in Naples, Florida. Winds were like 100, clocked at 130 in Naples, and there was actually a tornado. I'll tell you one more funny story about hurricane coverage. At least I'm standing there, we're doing live shots, we're kind of in an open space. I didn't want to be any place where you could be hit by anything, so we're kind of a relatively open road, like no one was on this road, and I was trying to be away from palms that had coconuts and stuff. And so our photographer was actually in a vehicle, protected, and he's shooting out the window to try to keep his camera dry, keep himself dry and not knocked over. And I'm just out there in the weather, right? And it's just crazy. We're on the back side of the eye wall, is what we got hit with, not the front side. But it was really tough to stand up.
Mike, you're almost there. The clearing is literally just off to your south. Hang in there. You are almost there. We're seeing it clear out.
I'm with Doc. I'm with you, man. I'm doing my best. This truly is exhausting. Sometimes I feel like I'm in good shape. I'm not so sure anymore. This is an eye wall. This is truly an eye wall here.
And I remember we partially got into the eye, so it got calm for us, and then it got pretty rough again, hard to stand up. Like this thing was pushing me around pretty good, and then it finally pushed by. And I had gotten a text message from, if you remember, Eric Fisher used to work at the Weather Channel. Now he's the chief in Boston, and he texted me with this kind of cryptic text that says, "Dude, I thought you were done tornado chasing." I was like, what is he talking about? Like, I'm in a hurricane. I don't understand what his message is. Until later that night, I had seen that video was posted online that I had gotten tagged in. There was actually a tornado that spun right behind me, within 50, 75 yards, and I didn't even know it.
Wow.
And I was like, holy cow, like, are you kidding me?
I remember watching that live on TV. I was in Maine visiting family. It was the first major hurricane I was supposed to chase, but family vacation. And so I'm watching it live on the Weather Channel and saw that go by you. And I'd look around the room. I was like, did anyone else see that go by him? Did I just imagine that? And I was like, I don't think he's aware that something just happened right behind him, but it was close.
I had no idea. I literally had no idea there was a tornado right behind me. And what was kind of interesting about that, and going back and kind of putting the pieces of the puzzle together, that the winds had been calming down a bit at that point. And so I remember I was getting like pulled down the street.
Yeah.
I was like, well, that was weird because like the storm is kind of pulling away. I didn't expect this really big gust of wind. It was the tornado that kind of pulled me down the sidewalk, down the street, and I had no idea. So that was one of the crazier moments that I had in a hurricane before.
Hey, dear listener, storm chasing and podcasting both cost money. And now that Gabe and I are back making podcasts regularly, we have a new way that you can support our show. If you look in the show notes, you'll see a link to be able to subscribe to our podcast. This will cost you $5 a month, and you will be rewarded with early access to our podcasts. You'll get each episode 2 days early as a $5 a month subscriber, and we will read your name on the podcast. This support means the world to us. We take our time out of our regular lives to make these episodes, and so just a little extra support would really, really mean the world to us. Thank you so much for listening and considering subscribing.
But as far as tornadoes go, probably Joplin stands head and shoulders above, all the other tornadoes that I've covered, just because it was just a really fresh moment, right? We had been chasing that storm, and we were there literally just minutes after it had touched down. And, this was just a month after the super outbreak. Mm-hmm. And, that was still, I think, fresh in a lot of people's minds. But, for me, having seen it, firsthand and seeing kind of, death and destruction on a real-time basis, which I'd never really done before, because so oftentimes how we would cover tornadoes at the Weather Channel is, something would happen and then you would go and cover it, and you were generally there the next day. And so a lot of the cleanup had already begun, people had been taken care of already. But that wasn't the case with Joplin. And so, you were just kind of immersed in this tragedy as it was unfolding. And just because of the scope of it, right? The scope of it was just so immense. And having covered lots of tornadoes before that, I just knew, like, you kind of get this feeling like when you see it and you can see how much is destroyed, you just kind of know how bad it is. And instinctually, I just knew how bad that one was.
People are just looking for their loved ones. They're looking for family members. If you take a look here at this neighborhood, all I can say is it looks very reminiscent of what we saw last month in, in Tuscaloosa. Yeah, it's tough. No question about that.
It didn't matter which way you pointed the camera. You saw what was going on in Joplin. And so, for me, I kind of, felt this real connection to that town during the event and afterwards, and, have gone back many times since. And so that really is a moment that really stands out for me.
Yeah. And your coverage, you are experiencing the emotions of the moment, and you're pretty candid in that moment. And it's a really kind of authentic, vulnerable moment. What was it like to have to get on camera while you're amidst that and a part of it?
Well, probably what most people remember is that, I had like this emotional moment, right, where you just kind of overcome with it all, and like the tears are streaming down my face. And at the time I was like, oh my gosh, like, what is wrong with me, right? Like, I was embarrassed that it had happened, because you just kind of want to keep your composure. But I think it was just so overwhelming, and knowing, I feel like you kind of edge yourself a little bit when you're on TV, because you don't necessarily want to, for me at least, I didn't want to convey what some of the things that I was seeing, right? Like, I literally was looking at dead people, and like, that's, you just can't necessarily say certain things on television. And knowing, for me, I just knew that it was going to be an immense death toll. And I think that at the moment, that kind of triggered in my brain while I was reporting. And what kind of had triggered that was, I remember Paul Goodloe had been in Tuscaloosa a month before, and dozens of people had died. The tornado was awful. It looked awful. It was just terrible, right? And there I was in Joplin, and I was looking at all of this stuff, and I thought back to Paul in Tuscaloosa, and I said to myself, this is worse. Mm-hmm. This is worse than Tuscaloosa. And I was like, how can that be? And I thought to myself, there are going to be so many people dead here. Like, I'm standing amidst one of the worst tornado tragedies maybe that this country's ever seen. And lo and behold, it was. But you kind of just inherently knew that. And that was the moment that it kind of choked me up. And I was just like, I feel just like I'm standing in a graveyard of people. And it just was it was just a lot. It was just a lot to process, because your whole body, your mind and your senses are on heightened alert, and like 360, everywhere you looked, you saw something you didn't want to see.
Yeah. We talk about this often, and yet, just like you were saying, the human mind is not calibrated to understand that, like, wind and air pressure can do the things that tornadoes and hurricanes do. It's almost impossible to describe to someone who isn't there. And it's unbelievable what these storms can do.
Yeah, I think we get so used to listen. It used to be, it was rare that you ever saw a tornado captured on camera, right? Now it's rare that you don't see a tornado captured on camera. And I think, generally speaking, as a society, we've probably become very numb to what we're just so used to them now, right? And you see it on television, you see the destruction. But when you're in it, or when it's yourself that's the victim, your house has been hit, your neighborhood has been hit, it's totally different, 100 times different than what you're seeing on television, because it's not you, right? And so, the power of Mother Nature never ceases to amaze me. What I'm always amazed by is the power of water and the power of wind. The power of water when it comes to storm surge and hurricane, and the power of wind when it comes to a tornado are such forces that it's really hard for humans to comprehend, because we think we can control everything, right? And when you realize you can't, then you realize there are just greater forces out there than what we are capable of dealing with.
Yeah, we always say on this show that control is an illusion. And being a storm chaser kind of really emphasizes that point. And then 2 years later, you had an experience where you were the victim of a tornado, and got to experience that again firsthand. That control is an illusion, and there are some things that happen that are just outside of your control.
There's, you're talking about the El Reno tornado in Oklahoma, and it was this moment that I never thought would end up happening to me as we were chasing that day, and ended up kind of getting on the storm a little bit late, and ended up getting to the storm in El Reno, and it was clear as day where the tornado was. We broadcast for like a minute.
Guys, that's it. Right there. There's the tornado. We are just north of Union City, south of El Reno, south of I-40. Cops have blocked off 81 at this point, and not letting traffic go southbound because the path of the tornado could come right over top of Union City or pass very close to it. Look at that monster. This is a huge tornado. If you live in Union City, south of El Reno, you have to take shelter now. We may actually quickly try to get in our cars and get south of this. That'd be the safest place to do that. I think we have to go now in order to stay ahead of this and not get run over by it. So, guys, I think we're going to get back in our cars. We're going to try to keep our cameras on top of this, and we're going to roll just to stay safe, okay? We'll be back with you in just a minute. But huge, violent tornado right now approaching Union City, south of El Reno, Oklahoma.
Because we were broadcasting with a mobile satellite truck and not, broadcasting, via cell phone, we needed to have a look at the southern sky where the satellite orbits. So generally speaking, we always want to be on the south side of a storm, because you can't really punch a signal through a big thunderstorm cloud. You just get knocked off the air. So our mentality is always, generally speaking, we can be on the south side of the storm. I think most chasers are probably in that same kind of realm anyways. But, we broadcast briefly, and then I'm like, okay, we got to go south, or we're just going to the storm's going to come right on top of us, or we're going to be on the north side of it, and we're never going to be able to broadcast, blah, blah, blah. So as we're going south, trying to get into a southern position to broadcast again in a couple of minutes, the tornado expands, accelerates, turns, the thing turns into a 2.5 mile wide beast, and ends up becoming the widest tornado in recorded history. And we end up getting hit by, the satellite tornadoes on this, or just vortices, I should say, within the parent circulation. And it tosses our vehicle into a cornfield, right? And so 200 yards later, most of that, more than half of that being spent in the air, was this bit of a surreal moment. Then you go tumbling through a field, side over side over side, and you end up landing, miraculously, like wheels down. And all of us inside the vehicle, myself, our cameraman, Brad, our producer and driver, Austin, all end up walking away from that vehicle.
Hold on, brothers. Hold on. Everybody duck, go. Just keep going if you can. Keep going if you can. Everybody duck down. Everybody duck down.
Austin ended up having some more significant injuries than we knew initially. Brad and I was just scrapes and bumps. But that was really a moment that I probably have, no reason to be here today. That tornado probably should have killed me, but it didn't, which I am eternally grateful for, but maybe taught me a lesson. It kind of retired the Weather Channel from storm chasing at that time. But then you now know what it's like. For me as a meteorologist, broadcast meteorologist, then became, very real to me what people go through when they're hit by a tornado. Not that was ever the intention, but then you kind of have that experience then, what happens. But also it was very tough to deal with in the years afterwards as well, having a near-death experience like that.
Goodness.
Yeah, I was in attendance for the 2024 Storm Chaser Summit where you gave the keynote address, and you were extremely candid and vulnerable in sharing your story with Joplin and about the El Reno tornado, and then about the journey of recovering from PTSD from those situations and what that looked like for you. And you had no idea I was actually in a very similar situation, and I was considering giving up storm chasing for at least a season or two. So your talk was extremely pivotal in me making the final decision to step back and go through my own healing journey. But maybe talk a little bit about that and the importance of knowing when to step back and knowing when to ask for help.
Well, yeah, for me, the PTSD didn't actually kick in right away, right? So the tornado happened in 2013, and it was a little tough to deal with, in the weeks afterwards, but, eventually, kind of it went away, right? What was interesting for me was when the PTSD kicked in was 5 years later. We had been doing anniversary stuff, and the 5-year anniversary of El Reno. I had been asked to do a podcast at that time. And what happened generally was just recounting the details of the tornado had triggered that moment for me again. And so it basically ended up re-traumatizing me. And then from 2018, 5 years later, and the weeks and months after I'd done that podcast, like things got really, really strange in my life, right? I'd gotten really grumpy and short-fused and angry. I was having all kinds of physical symptoms. My hands and feet would go numb. My whole body would shake. Every day I literally thought that I was going to die. Like every day I would wake up and I thought to myself, something's going to kill me today. And it was just, I had never gone through that before. And I was like, what is going on? I'd gone to every doctor I could imagine. Like I thought something was wrong to me. Every single doctor I went to said, there's nothing wrong with you. And I was like, there's something wrong with me. Like, I don't know what's happening. Like I was just in a really, really bad state for months. And really how it came to a head for me was there was a moment where I was playing with my kid in the morning. We were playing some Legos, and I suddenly had this urge for a drink. And so I went to the kitchen, I poured myself a drink, I drank it, went back, played Legos with my kid, and I was like, whoa, that was super weird. Like, I've never had this urge for a drink before. And I tell my wife that evening, and she's like, you've got to get some help. Like, there's nothing physically wrong with you. It's all between your ears. You need to talk to somebody. So I agreed that, yeah, this is probably something I need to do. And so going through literally months of therapy, And I'm just looking for answers, right? I'm like, what is happening? And about 3 months into therapy, my therapist says, I think you have PTSD. And I was shocked. I was like, I don't know what that's from. Like, nothing has happened to me. And she's like, no, it's from the El Reno tornado from 5 years ago. And we kind of realized that it was the podcast that had re-traumatized me and set me down this path of just craziness that I could not control. But from that point going forward, I'd gotten with some specialists, gotten specialized treatment for PTSD, obsessive compulsive disorder, all these things that were kind of dovetailing off of the PTSD. But it actually turned out that I had 8 different near-death experiences in my life.
Wow.
That I had apparently not processed, from childhood to adulthood, with the big one being El Reno. And so I really had to go back and reassess all of my past moments to put myself on the right path. And luckily, with some really quality help, things turned around for me pretty quickly, which I'm very grateful for.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It's just an incredible story. And we are so thankful. We don't know you personally, but we're so thankful that you dove into healing, with both feet. So few people can or do that. And just hearing your story today and hearing your 2024 talk, I was just like so inspired personally of like where do I need to, uncover these things in my life, what's holding me back and what's going on in my own life. And I know, Gabe, you feel the same way about your own story too, but I just want to say thank you from all of us for going through that and for sharing it so candidly.
Well, I think it's important. I think if I had kept it bottled up and people, I remember being at that talk. It was the first time I talked about it at the Storm Chasers Summit. The first time I talked about it, I was nervous to do it because nobody knew. I mean, only my immediate family had any idea. None of my coworkers knew. I was hiding it from everybody. But I was really, really struggling. Like I was headed toward a path of complete destruction. But I think it was the perfect audience, right? Because storm chasers see and experience so many traumatic things that I thought it was the moment that it needed to be said, right? And for me, it was kind of a relief, right? Like I finally admitted what had happened, what I was going through, and I appreciate what you said, because there were a lot of people after that came up to me and said, "Listen, thank you, because I'm either going through some things or I know somebody that's going through some things. And if it can happen to you and you can come out better on the other side, then there's hope for a lot of people." And that's my hope too, is that like people can just recognize maybe symptoms or how they're feeling. And it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to not be okay, right? We see it a lot. But if you don't find a path to healing, then you may go down a path that you don't want to be on. And I was certainly there at one point.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you do today that keeps you in kind of like good mental, emotional fitness? Are there any like tips or tricks that you've learned that could be helpful to our audience?
Well, everyone probably just will find their own thing, right? That works for them. For me, I do a little checkup, with my therapist. We spread those moments out more. I used to be going once a week, and now I'm going once every 3 months, 4 months, just more for check-ins than anything else. For me, though, the one thing that really helps me is a little bit of alone time and physical fitness. Like if I can stay active and be physical and get to the gym, get on my bike, go for a run, swim, those things I find very therapeutic for me. And everyone will, that may not be for everyone, but find your thing, right? Find your thing that really helps you, focus and compartmentalize and, stay in a right frame of mind. And that could be anything. It could be knitting. It could be reading. It could be, playing video games. Whatever is that moment that kind of brings you that moment of relief during the day, do it. It'll help you. It really, really will.
That's great advice. I heard once someone say, move a muscle, change an emotion. So moving your body. I'm a runner myself, and that's my time when I download or upload the emotions. I don't know which way it goes, but yeah, it really, really helps.
I've probably taken it to the extreme now because so now I started doing triathlons.
Wow.
And so I used to do them when I was younger, but now I'm like, and I think my wife now thinks I'm obsessed. But it's how I feel good, right? Yeah. She's like, you just spent 3 hours at the gym. I was like, baby, I got a triathlon coming up. I got to work out. And so now I've kind of maybe gone to the other end of the pendulum. Maybe I'm doing it a little bit too much, but I love it. And it does make me feel good. And so find your thing, right? Find your thing. Yes. The muscle thing is spot on.
Absolutely. I love it. I'm in the same boat with you. I'm training for my first trail race at elevation. I live in Colorado, and I gotta run hills, honey. I gotta go run hills. I'm sorry. Totally with you. You mentioned your kid. You're a dad. Gabe and I are dads. There's 4 girls amongst Gabe and I. We both have 2 daughters. What's it like being, a meteorologist as a dad, watching your kid kind of observe you and observe the weather? What does your kid think of what dad does?
Oh, he's so unimpressed. If I were on YouTube, then that would change his mind. Television, whatever. So it's funny because like he knows a lot about weather and he'll randomly say things about weather and he'll surprise me. But having a TV dad does not impress him in the least. The thing that he loves most is I had played in this like celebrity football game prior to a Super Bowl one year, and Snoop Dogg and I were on the same team. We have this picture, and he's like, "Dad, you know Snoop Dogg?" And so like this is what impresses him. Not that his dad has been on television for 30 years, but that I know Snoop Dogg because we played in a football game together once for like an hour. So that's what impresses him.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
That's great. Keeps you humble for sure. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That is hilarious and awesome at the same time. I'm impressed, Snoop Dogg. That's wonderful. That's great, man. Yeah, something we like to ask folks who have been in the industry for as long as you have. You've seen so many changes and been a part of those changes yourself, like capturing the first tornado on the Weather Channel in 2009. When you look out on the horizon, you mentioned YouTube and things like that. Where do you see kind of the broadcast meteorology industry going into the future?
Oh, that's a really great question because it's already evolving, so quickly, right? Because traditional TV, where so many people were for so long, just isn't the spot anymore, really. I think that people will gravitate to TV when the really big moments are happening. But all the in between and even at the big moments now, it's all digital, right? Because everyone wants it in the palm of their hand because everyone has a phone or an iPad or a connected TV or whatever it may be. And there are so many avenues to reach people now, like YouTube or social media, or just broadcasting from an app in general. I mean, there's so much content out there right now that there's no lack for weather content, that's for sure. And so I think, you have to find a niche, right? Like for a long time, local TV or the Weather Channel, we were just kind of all encompassing, right? We did everything. But now, you can get niches of weather television. If you want to watch live storm chasing, you can get that. If you want to listen to weather podcasts at your leisure, you can. And there are genres of that too, right? You can get different genres of weather podcasts, from what we're doing here to kind of geeky stuff to super sciencey stuff to, whatever it may be, right? And so I think that the digital world has transformed weather in a positive way. I mean, you literally can be taken to nearly every storm now. Across the world. The amount of cell phone coverage that we have right now is incredible. And I think that alone has really amped up our ability to do live coverage. I think AI is going to be a huge player in the not too distant future. I think you're going to see that become a major force. I don't think that you're going to see that overtake live storm broadcasting, whatever that may be, tornadoes, hurricanes, winter storms, wildfires, whatever. I don't think you're ever going to be able to AI that. I think it's just, it's not possible, right? Like that, you can't AI real life as much as we think we might be able to. So I think that live storm coverage, live weather coverage in the field outside of a studio is going to be where people really tune in. And then the other stuff, lots of people for years have already been getting that on an app, but that might be a little bit more customized with the advent of AI. So that's maybe my long-winded answer to your question, but the digital world has come at us very, very quickly, and the AI world is doing the exact same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just, I'm in the same boat with you in terms of, in order to cover human stories, you need humans covering those stories. And I believe it'll always be that way, whether we need, spotters on the ground, seeing storms happen or telling community stories afterwards. I think, we'll always be in the mix for sure.
I certainly hope so. I think that there is going to be, I think AI in particular is going to, change how we ingest news, generally speaking, over the course of the next few years here. But I think there's always going to be humans, I think, will always favor and believe the human, even though we are, to err as human, right? But at the same time, we're real. And so I think that is the difference, right? And when you have real weather coverage, that I think there is huge value in that.
Absolutely. We're up against time a little bit, but I really want to ask one more question, if that's okay, before you have to jump. Mm-hmm. I would say I think the Mike Bettis signature, to me at least, is you have this energy and presence on camera that is so unique to you and so compelling, and you grab the viewer or the listener. Obviously, is that a learned skill? Have you had that on camera? And what advice would you give to young people who are maybe studying television meteorology and how to build that skill?
First of all, very kind of you to say thank you. I appreciate that. If you went back and looked at me when I was first in broadcast, you'd be like, that guy's terrible. So yeah, I think over the course of time, it is learned, what viewers want to see, or you watch yourself, and you learn, you're like, oh, I didn't like that, what I said, or this or whatnot. But I had some advice given to me. Listen, in television, we have these consultants all the time, tell you what you're doing wrong and what you should be doing better and whatnot. But I got very good advice from a consultant many, many years ago who said, go out of your comfort zone. Like, you're playing it super safe. Like but for television, you have to go you almost have to be a performer, like you're on stage. Like, you watch performers in a play or a musical, they're really over the top in how they perform. She goes, do that. And when you're out of your comfort zone, that's perfect. Because it translates better on television. Even though you may feel like you are totally being wild, on TV, it doesn't come off that way. It just comes off as you're generally interested, excited, engaged about the content that you're talking about. And so I was like, all right, I'll try it. And lo and behold, I did it. And a co-anchor that I had at the time, this was in Asheville, North Carolina, he's like, I'm going to try it too. And so we both decided we were going to do it this way. And all our coworkers for like the next few weeks, like, what's up with these two? Like,
what are they
they're
on?
berserk. Like, what is wrong with them? But wouldn't you know, here's what's funny about that. Both of us, within months, end up getting new jobs. He got a job in Boston, which was a big, huge market jump for him. I got a job at the Weather Channel. So clearly it resonated, right? But it was right, because otherwise you just come off as kind of boring if you're just talking normally. Not that I'm acting. I'm not. I've just learned how to present properly for television so it comes across as engaging. And I think that's what a lot of us try to do, is what words can I say? What actions can I take? What facial expressions can I make? Which arm gestures can I make that make what I'm saying interesting to the viewer? And that's what I hope for, every day.
Absolutely. Well, it works. It really works. You grab and hold the audience, and we want to listen. We really do. So that's a wonderful lesson. Thank you for sharing that. That's an awesome story. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mike. We really appreciate your time amidst your busy production schedule. Is there anything you'd like to point our listeners to, either on the web or on broadcast?
I say, listen to everyone out there that's listening to you now. Obviously, there's a lot of weather fans out there. Just keep loving it, man. Like, just keep loving it. Watch it, enjoy it, be part of it, and embrace it, right? Like, embrace your inner weather geek. It's okay, man. Like, let that flag fly, and let's all, be a community and embrace it and help each other and learn and grow and all share this unified passion for weather, because it can be a lot of fun. We talk a lot about the tragedy, but there's a lot of fun out there in weather too.
Great reminder. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Great advice. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, Mike. This has been a huge honor and pleasure for us.
Great to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much for listening to StormReel. Please, if you could rate, review, and subscribe. And if the place you're listening has a little bell or notification tool, hit that as well, so you'll know right when the next episode of StormReel releases. Thank you to Aurograph for the use of our theme song, Metamorism. You can find that awesome song and album streaming everywhere. You can find us everywhere online at The StormReel and at stormreel.com. For StormReel, I've been Jeremy Heyman, joined by Gabe Cox. We'll talk soon.